and welcome to Happy Horror Time. My name is Tim Murdoch.
And my name is Matt Emmert. Today's special guest is the editor-in-chief of Dread Central, one of the largest horror websites in the world, and a site I can honestly say both Tim and I visit frequently. And if you think that isn't cool enough, she recently made her directorial debut with the indie revenge thriller Bystanders, which was just released on VOD on January 21st. Oh, and did I mention she also co-hosts a podcast called Scarred for Life, where she talks with guests about the film that terrified them growing up and made them lifelong horror fans. She has quite the resume in horror, and we're so excited to welcome to the podcast Mary Beth McAndrews.
Hi! Wow, you make me sound impressive. Thanks for that.
You are impressive. Are you kidding? Like, I mean, we've talked to some people who do like juggle a million hats in horror, and we're like, it's tough enough just to do this podcast every week. It's like to do that many jobs is pretty commendable. But like, first off, congrats on the release and directing your first film. That's amazing. I heard you mention in the Eye on Horror podcast that you grew up in Maryland and now live only 40 minutes from Burkittsville, where the Blair Witch Project took place. So I've got to ask, did this inspire your love of horror at all? Or how did you first become interested in the horror genre?
So my dad is really into horror. So like I watched my first horror movie when I was 4. My grandfather showed me Jaws, like thinking it wasn't a horror movie, like thinking it would be fine. And then I didn't go in the ocean for several years after that. The typical like indoor pools definitely had sharks in them. They were in my bathtub. But as I got older, and by older, like 10, so, you know, still not appropriate. My dad was like, oh, we should watch the Blair Witch Project. It's not that scary. And it was scary. Like, I didn't... Like, my dad would have to go pick up his wife from work, and I would never go with him. After we watched the Blair Witch Project, I had to go with him. And she was like, why are you never come with him? And I was like, we watched the Blair Witch Project. And she said, yes. And I was in Girl Scouts, and I went to Girl Scout camp every summer. And after I watched the Blair Witch Project, I had a little bit of a hard time going to the woods in Girl Scout camp. And like, we weren't near Burkittsville, but I didn't know that. So I was convinced. So like, it definitely was a huge part of my childhood for sure, especially because I spent a lot of time camping when I didn't want to be camping.
I mean, I was 19 when Blair Witch Project came out, which I'm showing my age, but I was terrified after seeing it.
And one thing I noticed is on your hand, you have a Blair Witch tattoo. That's so cool.
When did you get that? You're like at age 10.
Yeah. No, I actually got it. It was like one of my more recent tattoos, actually, like in the last... I got it in Montreal when I went to Fantasia Film Festival, and I was like, I need a tattoo. And I said, why not get a Blair Witch Project tattoo? So it was like in the last couple of years.
Wow.
And I wanted a found footage tattoo. Found footage is one of my favorite subgenres, and I love it so much. I have another one from Noroi the Curse on the other side, if you've seen that one. It's a Japanese found footage movie. Yeah, I love found footage.
And putting you on the spot, and found footage included, what are your top 5 favorite horror films?
Okay.
And I know that's tough. That is such a tough question, but we're putting you on the spot. That's why we didn't ask, like, what's your favorite? You don't have to pick one, but you do have to pick 5.
Okay. I do appreciate the 5, though. I will say I appreciate the 5. Okay. This is going purely on the vibe for today. It might change. I always say, like, the vibes change, but today I think Cure by Kiyoshi Kurosawa. Black Christmas, the original one by Bob Clark. Lake Mungo.
Another good one.
The Strangers from Brian Bertino, and then Revenge from Coralie Farge.
Oh,
great one.
I thought Jaws was going to make it in.
I love Jaws. I really do. But like the vibes today, I don't know. It's a top 10 for sure. But it's one of those ones that like I love and will always watch and always love. But I don't know. Those were the ones.
Black Christmas, the original, would get on my top 5 too, and I think Jaws would get on your top 5.
I love all the Jawses. I would say Jaws 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, like especially for the Revenge.
They're all I don't care. I have to rewatch Jaws 3D for something, and I'm so excited.
What for?
Tim loves Jaws 3D.
I love Jaws
We
3D.
have on Scarred for Life, one of our guests is bringing Jaws 3D as the movie that's scarred, and I'm so excited because I love that movie. Like, I know what it is, and I still love it. So I'm excited to rewatch it.
That's amazing. So now, how did you first get involved with Dread Central?
So, how did I first get involved with Dread Central? I literally were looking for a social media person, and I was looking to get out of my job at the time. I was working at an animal shelter doing like video producing, which was really cool, but also like really much more emotionally exhausting than I was expecting it to be in terms of working with animals and like at an animal shelter. And I applied for this job, and the role kind of evolved during the interview process and then it kind of just like, I think they were like, oh, you have a lot of other skills. Would you like to do more work with us? And I was like, I would never say no to doing more work with a horror outlet. Why would I ever say no to that? And it kind of morphed into what it is now. So it was kind of like luck and applying to this job. But I mean, I've been writing about horror for almost a decade. So like I've worked with a couple outlets doing like editing work, like Daily Grindhouse, Film Cred is a small place. I've done a lot of social media work for places. So I've been doing horror journalism for a while, and then finally got a foot in the door for a full-time horror journalism gig, which is like incredible. Like, I can't believe I get to do it. It's wild.
And what's your favorite part about being editor-in-chief of Dread Central?
I get to watch a lot of really cool movies. Like, that sounds so silly, but like, I honestly am so lucky that I get people send me projects that like I never would have heard of, and I get to watch really cool stuff and find things. Like, I always lightly brag, Robbie Banfitch of The Outwaters I was one of the first people he sent a link to, and I watched it, and I was like, this is the next big thing. And now I'm friends with Robbie, and like, I don't know, it's just like being able to champion these titles that are kind of weird or different, and being able to like be a person who can have a bigger voice and help amplify those titles is like the coolest part of the job for me.
That is a great answer. Yeah.
Because there's just so many cool movies out there and it's so hard. And like, there's so many to the point that it's hard to find the good ones, and being able to help people, like point people in the right direction and support some really amazing artists is like the coolest part of the job. I've met so many cool people at this job. It's just been like, it's been really awesome.
That's great. I mean, like, yeah, I feel like it's kind of a dream job for horror people. Like, we're thinking, I'm like,
It is. I can't lie. It is. It's like kind of wild. It's like kind of one of those like pinch me moments when I'm like, I can't take this for granted. Like, you know what I mean? Because like, it's a job, so it's hard. But I'm like, but also I get to write about horror movies all the time. So like,
yeah, and doing your podcast, you get to revisit Jaws 3.
What's the number one thing you like about your podcast? Oh, revisiting Jaws 3. No, I mean, I can't even imagine, like, yeah, and we'll get to your podcast soon. But so before we jump into Bystanders, I noticed via IMDb that this wasn't the first film you've worked on. You executive produced a number of horror films that came out over the last 2 years, including The Jester, Last Night at Terrace Lanes, Bag of Lies, and Ghost Game. So as an executive producer, what kinds of tasks do you get to be involved in?
I love you ask this. No one ever asks about this. And like, it's kind of, it was my first foray into making movies. And it was really awesome because a lot of the work I did was in the development phase with a lot of these scripts. Like, I worked really heavily, especially on The Jester and Terrace Lanes, with like the scripts at the beginning and developing the scripts and giving notes, working with the writers and getting everything set there. So like, a lot of my work with executive producing was in the pre-production process and like the developing process and getting the script to the right place before it was like officially greenlit. And that was like, so it was just like so fun to get to be creative with a lot of these scripts and work with some really awesome people and meet some really amazing people, especially because a lot of the stuff was done locally in Maryland. So I got to work with a lot of local talent that I wouldn't have been connected with, which was really cool. And I got to meet some really awesome filmmakers, just even in an area that I don't always expect Maryland to be like a big filmmaking hub, but actually there's a pretty awesome filmmaking scene here. Like, yeah, we have the Blair Witch Project, and actually like I've gotten to work with Eduardo Sanchez, which is like another ridiculously pinch me moment. Like, hi, I have a tattoo of your movie on my body. This is really weird. Hello. But It's been a really awesome experience getting to learn about the entire filmmaking process while also being able to help develop these stories into even cooler things and making and helping them translate to screen easier. It's been awesome.
And did working on those films inspire you to work on your own film?
Kind of. So like it was a weird, so it's weird. So I kind of like fell into filmmaking because I was always like, I can't make a movie. I don't know how to do that. And I wouldn't be good at it. Why? I just assumed that for reasons I don't fully understand. I always wanted to do the like academic side of everything. I always wanted to write about movies. I wanted to like watch them and analyze them, but I never really thought about making them. But then while working at Dread, I brought the script as a script I'd like not to like get too into Bystanders yet, but I brought them this script and they actually asked me to direct it because of my background and like my specific interest in this field of like rape revenge films. They asked me to direct it because I had a lot of experience and passion about it and they thought it would be a good fit. And I said yes, because why not? And I had learned a lot from the executive producing. And even though I was nervous, I was like, I can't say no to that opportunity. So yeah.
I mean, that's such a great like step from producing and then into directing, and we'll jump into Bystanders now. Like I mentioned in the intro, listeners, it was just released on video on demand on January 21st, and just want to warn everyone, as we always do in this podcast, we will be discussing spoilers. So if you're listening right now and would rather not have us spoil the movie, please pause the interview now and come back after watching Bystanders. That is your warning, because we are going to go into plot points and things. And yeah, that's you kind of were starting to get to that, but wanted to know, how did you first come into contact with Jamie Alvey's script, and what was it about this story that appealed to you?
Yeah, so she wrote the script in 2017. She was inspired by the Brock Turner case and what was going on there. And I knew Jamie online. We were both writers, we were both writers, and we were both writing for similar outlets and just kind of knew each other from online interactions. And in 2018, I went to grad school and I was actually researching female-directed rape revenge films and writing about that and getting my degree in film studies with like the goal to be a professor. And I had these like grand ideas of being an academic. And she posted about the script, and I was researching women-directed and written rape revenge films. Of course, I wanted to read it. I read the script. I was obsessed with it, but I didn't know how to help with it. But like I wanted to be involved with it somehow. And then flash forward to when I got my job at Dread Central and started working with Dread, the label, and Epic Pictures. Epic owns Dread Central, in case people didn't know that. I brought them the script as like, hey, I've been holding on to this for literal years before I even knew what to do with scripts. It's like, we should make this movie. It's easy to make cheap. And it makes us and it's like, it's a really cool political piece that like kind of shows, hey, like we care about these things. And after, the development process takes forever and getting people to read scripts takes forever, but I finally got them to read it. And Patrick, my boss, offered and said, like, do you want to direct it? Because, you know this stuff. You've studied rape revenge. Like, you obviously are passionate and know about the topic. Do you want to direct? And I said, yeah, sure. Yeah.
I mean, no, it feels like it sounds like it was meant to be, like how it all just
I know, it's really cool. I know, it all fell into place, and like it does feel very like it all feels very like serendipitous in a really cool way. It's like in a way that's like, what? Like if you had told me in 2018 when I was like furiously writing my thesis that I was going to direct a movie like this, I'd be like, what do you mean? I'm going to go get my PhD.
I'll be teaching about these movies. Well, speaking of your studies, because you said you studied rape revenge films directed by women in grad school. So how did your studies influence your approach to making this movie, as in either in terms of things you learned that you wanted to do or even things maybe you wanted to steer clear of? Yeah.
So there were a lot of examples of what I didn't want to do, for sure. And I think I had a really solid base about what had come before. And I kind of knew what hadn't been explored and how it hadn't been explored, and like ways into the subgenre that hadn't been done before, but I also was aware of how the subgenre has shifted so much, especially in last like decade. And it was really exciting to kind of think about the films that have come before us and how we fit into that canon was really impactful for me, just because like I've also interviewed a lot of these women as part of my job, as part of my day job. And so it's always been in the back of my head. I'm kind of joining this pantheon in a way that like feels very unreal to me, just because like, not saying I put them on a pedestal, but I'm like, these people have shaped my like little brain. And on top of this, not to like get too heavy, but I'm a sexual assault survivor too. So I think a lot of my own experiences and feelings in watching narratives that include sexual assault like was really helpful, because I do think that having a survivor behind the camera completely like does really shift the impact. And I'm not saying you have to be a survivor to make these kinds of movies, but I think for better or worse, because of my experience, I think I have a little bit more of an idea about the nuances. And I think that's also very helpful just in crafting a narrative that feels a little bit more complex than what we've seen. Like I Spit on Your Grave, Last House on the Left, things like that. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, no, but I was thinking of, because I was very interested because you are approaching this. There's so much knowledge you have from going to school for this, your own personal experiences, so you can put so much in it. I was just wondering, like, because, let's be honest, not everything we learn in school is something that we always put forth in the real world. So I was just very interested, because you had studied this, like what you were taking from that to put in your movie and what you weren't. But, we've also heard that oftentimes directors kind of work hand in hand with writers during the pre-production stage, especially if there are aspects of the story that maybe they may want to alter or change. And so when you became director, was there any script changes that you wanted to make, or character additions or deletions that you discussed with Jamie?
So a lot of the changes we made to the script in pre-production were to fit the budget, because like the original script had them lighting the cabin on fire at the end. And, on the budget we had, we could not light a cabin. There was not going to be an effective way to make that look good. And so we changed the ending. And Jamie worked really hard on that, because like I think from the beginning when we were greenlit, it was like we have to change the ending. It was kind of a mandate, because again, we had less than $100,000 to make this movie, so we had to like really do what we could to make lower budget kills, but like still very impactful. So she worked really hard on that. And then, but like from my perspective, I didn't really want to change much. Like the characters were there. I just wanted us to reduce the number of frat boys and just make it easier to make for no money. And then once we got to set, she stars in it. And because I think I have been a fan of the script since she's been writing it, there was a lot of trust between the two of us. Like I wasn't just some random person who had just read the script. Like I had been kind of following its journey and reading different versions of it. So when I had to make changes on the fly, she understood that it wasn't, these changes were changed because we had to do it for time or like for something else. It wasn't that I wanted to change something for story. It was, oh, we only have this much time to do it. So there was a trust between us. I think that was really nice when we got to production with it, because again, a lot of things had to change on the fly because of, again, chaos on set, like timing and everything like that. Yeah.
And where was the house where you filmed in the woods?
It was in Mount Olivet, Kentucky, one of the smallest towns in all of Kentucky. It was so tiny and everyone knew us there, and it was incredible. All of the woods we filmed on were on that same property. So basically that was an Airbnb cabin that I lived in with Jamie and our producer, Jeff, for the whole time. And then all of the woods surrounding it, we scoped out and shot in, like behind the house and everything. So it was all in one property.
This is giving me like Evil Dead vibes.
Yeah.
Didn't they like stay in the cabin?
Everyone says that. I know. It's so funny. Like it was very Evil Dead, but like it definitely was a nicer cabin than the Evil Dead cabin. Like we had like
beautiful cabin.
Yeah, it was like a family cabin. Like the guy who we rented it from was this old doctor who built it for him and his wife to like live in, and then she passed away, so now he rents it out. Like it was really cute. But it literally had like hatches and like there was holes that spiders crawled through. So like it was like a log cabin. Like it was a log cabin.
Oh, I don't like spiders.
I found the biggest spider in our kitchen and I almost threw up. It was the biggest spider I've ever seen. And it wasn't poisonous. We looked it up because I was terrified it was, but I still I was like, I'm gonna have to burn the house down. Like,
well, you did a good job.
Burn the house.
You'd never know there were spiders in it.
You're like, it's snack time, everyone.
Oh my god. Well, and it was like it was literally everyone was asleep except for two of us. And I was like, trying not to scream because everyone was sleeping in the house. But I was like, we have to burn the house if there's spiders like this in here. I can't do it.
You know, if you ever want to do an arachnophobia reboot, maybe you can get that cabin again. You'll save money on all that. Yeah. So
the cabin was incredible. We only found one big spider once, but still.
That's all you need.
I am not an outdoors girl, so it was definitely an experience.
Kim is not an outdoors girl either.
It's called clamping or glamping.
Glamping.
Yeah.
Glamping is very different. Wow. Oh, wow. Oh, Timmy. Okay, so now obviously it was funny. We're all laughing. Now to get a little more serious. So obviously you dealt with some, really heavy subject matter because in the beginning of the film, 3 girls are drugged and sexually assaulted and basically hunted down by some really awful frat bros. So as a director, how do you prepare your actors, both the men and the women, to deal with and portray such sensitive material?
That was like a big thing for me too. A big thing. And I think from the very beginning, like that was something I was concerned about. And before we even cast Abby, she's played by Brandy Botkin. Actually, Brandy wanted to chat with me and Jamie and for herself to actually be like, so how are we handling this? And it was a really great conversation. And it made me really happy that she was thinking about it that way too. Like she wasn't taking this on lightly. And we had this mutual understanding of wanting this to be a certain way and not wanting to show it for one, and not have it be gratuitous. I think, Brandy was worried from the way things have been in the past about like gratuitous nudity and things like that. And that was the exact opposite of what we wanted to do with this. And then from then on set, I was very honest from the get-go of like, hey, this has impacted me personally. I know it has impacted a lot of people personally, whether yourself or Fim, this is a rough movie. We are all allowed to take breaks. Like it was a lot of like setting expectations from the get-go of like, you're allowed to be a person and take breaks because I myself will have to take breaks. So like, don't be embarrassed. And I think that helped the vibe on set quite a bit about like knowing that this was being taken seriously and with care. And then it was just a lot of like checking in with people, especially the night after we shot the beginning of the hunt scene. There's some really awesome and sad behind the scenes photos of like me hugging everyone and like checking in on everyone, especially Brandy and the guys, and just like making them all feel comforted and just kind of making that vibe on set was just like a really important part of directing for me. So yeah, that was it. It was just a lot of checking in and hugging if they wanted it, and just like letting them know that there were people to talk to if they wanted to or if they needed to.
That's great because, we talk to a lot of people from horror films, and a lot of them are from horror films like 30 or 40 years ago. Yeah. And not every director takes the time to really develop a trusting relationship with their actors. And the ones that do will hear, they form lifelong relationships with these actors and they feel trusted and they want to work with them again. And then other times they just feel like they're just a pawn in some, just making this product and it's transactional. So that's very important. I can tell. And you mentioned this in your answer a little bit, but obviously some films of this nature choose to depict the assault in painstaking detail, while some completely avoid it altogether. But what I loved about your approach is that you didn't shy away from the uncomfortable material, but it also didn't feel exploitative. So what made you decide to take this approach?
So Jamie had written it similarly in the script. And I think from my perspective, the most effective assault scenes for me were ones where it wasn't so explicit, and ones that leaned into a more kind of hazy play with your imagination type thing. And also, I think from my perspective as a director, I didn't think it was necessary for our movie. I didn't think it, I think because the whole ethos we kind of put it behind this movie was violence against boys, not against women. We're not showing any violence against women except for some exceptions. Spoiler alert. But
Cody's mom.
Oh, yeah. So we didn't want to show any violence against Abby because we didn't want us to focus like a spectacle on her body, and wanted to instead be about the spectacle of violence towards the guys, and still have the impact of what happened and still make it serious, but without it having to be this like violent kind of exploitative sequence.
Yeah, and I've got to say, you know, when we watched sometimes, and I think this is said for even like all sorts of horror, sometimes what you don't see is even more uncomfortable and terrifying than what you do see. So, you know, like just thinking the worst sometimes is worse than seeing the worst.
Yeah,
you can tell, you can do a lot just hearing what they're saying and knowing what's going on. So, you know, that it was, I think it was a really great approach. You know, Abby, who she gets away and runs into our lead couple, Claire and Gray, who up until this point you think are just, you know, your everyday boyfriend and girlfriend, but we soon find out that they are kind of almost like Dexter-like serial killers who hunt down people who do really awful, disgusting things. Now, first off, do you welcome the Dexter comparison in terms of these characters? Because I noticed in the film that Gray actually gets called Dexter by one of the bros.
Yeah, we do. I mean, like, it's such an obvious comparison. I think that's why we leaned into it, just because, like, it is the biggest parallel, too. So, yeah, we welcome. Again, that's why we did it, because it's fun. It's a kind of like that funny nod of, like, oh, no, yes, we know. We are very aware.
And Jamie Alvey plays Claire. Did she always want to star in her movie? Or was that?
Yeah, she and that was actually kind of nice. We were like, oh, cool. One person already cast. Easy peasy. Yeah. Well, because she had been, you know, she's been with these characters for so long and was really familiar with them. And her request was to play Claire. And I said, I mean, you know the character better than anyone. So it makes sense. It just made sense.
No, that's great. Now both Claire and Gray tell their own stories of suffering assault and abuse throughout their lives. In fact, they even say they have trauma brain. So was it important for you to portray them as not just characters who seek revenge on shitty people for the hell of it, but because they too have dealt with their own trauma?
Yeah, I think, you know, there's a tendency in a lot of revenge films to have this like avenging angel or avenger thing, and it's always like they want to avenge a person, and they don't always go into like the background. I don't know. There's like always very surface level as to why someone wants to rescue someone else. But I think here it goes really into that like the hurt people thing, but in a very different regard. And I think it's just a really interesting look at, you know, we think of the perfect victim of someone who's supposed to like, oh, that was awful, but like is quiet and kind and like doesn't make a scene, and this kind of flips it on its head and says, no, we're allowed to be angry at the people who hurt us, and we're allowed to do something with that rage other than just sit and be quiet, which feels apt for the current time we live in.
Very, very much so. You know,
unfortunately.
Yeah. Yay 2025. Anyway. So another thing I really like
Washington DC, god damn it, I'm sorry.
So another thing I really liked about the setup and characters in your film is that it wasn't just a girls versus boys revenge story. It's more than that, because, you know, you have the male character of Gray in the mix, who's very much hunting down the frat boys with everyone. And then on the other side, you have frat boy Cody's mom, who basically enables her son to do whatever he wants to with girls. So was it important for you to include male and female characters on both sides of the coin, or did this not factor into your thinking at all?
It was, because I think it's so easy for like the gender divide to fall. Like because again, like a lot of times with it's like, oh, women are assaulted and men are the assaulters, and it's like, well, no, it's actually way more complicated than that. And while with this movie we weren't going into how complicated, like we weren't trying to go into that necessarily. We did want to show that like patriarchy and toxic masculinity is not man versus woman. It's like patriarchy versus everyone, and everyone is affected by it in various ways. And it doesn't just fall on gender lines. Like women can be on the side of patriarchy and be terrible, and men can be on the side of women and want to support and like not be terrible misogynists. So I think it's not about man bad, but about more like patriarchy is bad, and this is how patriarchy is infecting all of us, not just men, but how it affects like men and women. And I think trying to kind of have with having Gray and having the mom at the end, I think just kind of is our way of dipping our toes into that water and showing that this isn't just about like man versus woman, but about a society that needs to kind of be reformed in its gendered thinking.
Yeah, and it was a nuance that we definitely noticed while watching. As soon as Claire and Gray start torturing and killing the frat boys, they kind of add a level of humor to a film that otherwise, could have been really serious. Do you enjoy films that combine horror and humor? And do you think the humor in this movie in particular helps people deal with kind of the heavier subject matter?
Yeah, so actually, the film wasn't always, there was always like some dark humor in it, but Garrett Murphy brought a lot of humor to Gray. He did a lot of like kind of ad-libbing and put a little bit more of a silliness to him than we had expected, but we really loved it because the comedy makes it feel so unique. Because again, there was comedy on the page, but I think again, Garrett's take on Gray was a bit more playful, and so it made Claire and Gray feel even more playful, and I think that makes this film feel so different. Like it helps it kind of stand out from other revenge movies too, and that it is very serious and takes the subject seriously, but also isn't afraid to be kind of like laugh at itself or laugh at and like make these jokes and kind of not be afraid to have a sense of humor, because again, a lot of people who have trauma cope with senses of humor, and I think like that kind of shines through here. And yeah, I was really, especially as we were editing it together and like really seeing the comedy come out, it was really cool to see how the tone of the film was being shaped by that. It was awesome to see that, because I felt it on set, but like really watching us piece it together in post was really cool.
And the movie has a lot of gory scenes and some torture scenes. Did you have one in particular that was your favorite?
Like a favorite kill?
Okay, my favorite is the bathtub, because the bathtub was my idea. Because so initially it was supposed to be a pond, but we couldn't. There was a pond on the property, but one, it was full of snakes and it was too far away. It was logistically not going to happen. So we wanted to have the drowning. I said, oh, we have this beautiful claw bathtub right here. Let's fill it with jungle juice and like drown a boy in it. I've never seen that in horror before. Let's drown a boy in nasty frat boy liquor. And I know it's a simple one, but also like the shot gag was like, I was so proud of that shot when Gray shoots him, because we got that in one take. We only had one take to make it look good. And if it didn't look good, it was just going to look like we had to cut it. But it looked so good. And then it was all of it came together in the most perfect package that like could have been garbage. And I was just so proud of how we pulled it all off.
It's like everyone who went to college knows the look of that creepy frat boy jungle juice punch, like it's so identifiable. And I think but random question. What was in your blue frat boy juice? I mean, for the filming, was it just like Kool-Aid?
Oh yeah. So as of recording this, and I literally today, we're recording, I posted the behind the scenes of me and my production designer making the bathtub of literally just blue raspberry Kool-Aid packs that we got. The town we stayed in had a Family Dollar and a gas station, and only the Family Dollar we bought all of their blue raspberry Kool-Aid mix out and dumped it all in the bathtub and made a disgusting soup.
They're like, these people sure like Kool-Aid.
This is such like
they were so used to us coming in every day getting something. Like they asked, like, "Oh, what's this for today?" Like they were so used to us coming in because again, it was a tiny town. It was this. They didn't even have a stoplight. They had a stop sign, so like everyone knew who we were. So we would go to the gas station. They're like, "Oh, hi!" Like they were just like they asked like how we were doing, what we needed. So yeah, like they knew who we were. It was awesome.
And like I love to clean. Could the bathtub be cleaned? I mean, was the guy okay when they came back?
So honestly, like I was worried about that. It didn't dye anything. Somehow miraculously the blue did not dye the tub, and it was very easy to clean. I was very concerned about that. So
this Happy Horror Time episode has been sponsored by Kool-Aid. Pour it in your bathtub, it won't stain.
It doesn't, and it doesn't stain your skin either. So if you need to dunk someone in blue Kool-Aid, it won't stain them blue.
I mean, doesn't everyone? So, were the deaths of the frat boys written to be extra violent, or did you make them more violent as a sort of like catharsis for the viewers who experienced the awful things that these guys did?
Both, actually. So some of them were written like happened as is, but like the boy who gets castrated, we added the castration. So we were blocking out his death that would end with, like that initially ended with him getting his throat slit, but our production designer, who was a man, which this cracks everyone up, he was like, this is boring. Like they would do more, like wouldn't they cut his dick off or something? And I was like, you're a genius. So we ended up adding that to make it more brutal. So
how was that conversation with the actor?
So honestly, no, that's a good question though, because I was like, oh shit, we did not ask him about, like, we need to, because again, all of our actors were like are in their early 20s, like they're newish. Like this guy, John Connors, he was so game. It was his first movie, and I go up to him like, John, hey bud, can we cut off your dick? And he's just like, and I'm like, I know I'm the director, and this is like awkward, and we don't have to like, but he was like, I'm okay with it. And I was like, what about putting it in your mouth? And he goes, no. I said, okay, that's fine. Like, we'll get that. Okay, that's fine. Because I was like, how bad? And he's like, no. I'm like, all right, that's fine. That's fine. Like, we were trying to find the bound.
Where's the boundary? That's amazing.
Hey, like, look, we sprung it on him at the last minute. I know it's a lot. So, hey, if he said no, I was going to respect the boundary, because, like, it's a lot to spring on someone. Like,
hey, it's like 10 minutes before the shoot. Hey, we're cutting your dick off. Action.
He was, but they were all okay. But everyone loved to die, and they were stoked on their death scenes. So, like, it was great. So everyone was excited.
That's awesome. So, you know, one thing the film presents is kind of a moral dilemma for people, because you so want these awful guys to get their comeuppance. But even Claire tells Abby that killing her assaulter won't stop the pain she suffered. Did you like playing around with this moral dilemma, as in like whether it's okay to do bad things to bad people?
Oh, yeah, because it's a moral dilemma I've had myself. I mean, like, you know, I've had moments where I'm like, I would love to kill my rapist, you know, like I feel like a lot of us who have these experiences feel that way and like grapple with that. And I think having a movie openly grapple with that is something it's not done a lot. And it, like watching it, that scene was hard for me to film because it felt like me talking to my younger self, which I was like, didn't expect that to hit me so hard, because like I'm behind the monitor, like silently tears streaming down my face, trying to like concentrate, because it really is a conversation that like people don't want to talk about their violent thoughts, because they're like, oh, I have a violent thought, I'm a bad person. And it's like, no, I think we should be allowed to like kind of address these feelings, like understand we don't want to act them out, but like we have this rage that we don't know what to do with. And I think that scene was really important in showing like, no, the pain is impossible and it's so difficult, but like there are other ways to deal with it. And I think that complexity was really important to show with our heroes, anti-heroes, however you want to describe.
But
Claire
that's
Gray.
what I liked. I liked that, you could have seen Claire as this person that would have been just welcome the help. Like, sure, come and help me kill. But, I'm killing people. But it's like she talked with Abby and said, no, this is how I cope. You don't need to do this kind of thing. So I thought that was a cool little nuance that you added to the film. We also really enjoyed the music in this movie. And we saw that you included a song by Robbie Banfitch, who directed The Outwater. So what was your when you're coming up with or getting the music, what was your approach for the music? As in, what were you thinking in terms of the tone and how you wanted it all to sound?
Okay, thank you for asking about the music, because I was the music supervisor and I was so obsessed with doing the music, and it was the hardest part of the whole movie. So it was music licensing sucks, and it's very expensive and difficult. And when you are an indie movie, it's really hard to license music because people want a lot of money for their work, which, hey, I totally get. But I'm a huge music person. I'm a huge music and movie person, and I love using not just score, but using existing songs to underscore moments. And so I really wanted to put together a music medley that was both kind of joyful, kind of felt like a teenager pop music, but then also leaned into the darkness of it as well. So there was a lot of stuff I listened to while we were editing, a lot of Ethel Cain, American Teenager, that kind of music for the beginning, and Lingua Ignota, who's an incredible singer, for the end. And I could not get either of them. So I worked with a lot of my friends, actually. I'm very lucky to have a lot of talented musician friends, and Robbie Banfitch is one of my musician friends. So I used music from 3 friends of mine, and then I had another friend who goes by Delorum compose 2 original ambient drone sounds for us to use. So that's the music you hear in a lot of the kill parts, or the more kind of ambient score music is their music. So I kind of took the musicians I liked and my sky and the pie in the sky people, and then was oh, I have a lot of friends who sound like this, and kind of use them to put together a really good score that I was really proud of for an indie movie that was just me and my musician friends.
Ah.
And after the film wrapped, was there a cast and crew screening on a big screen, or how did you all come together and see it?
Yeah, was there a premiere? Did you guys do a film festival premiere, or how did that go?
Yeah, so we did a film festival premiere. So everyone, or most people, came to our Horror Hound premiere, which was our world premiere in Ohio in July. Yeah, Horror Hound.
Ooh, great convention.
The Fall Horror Hound. Yeah, it was. I'd never been before. It was so good. It was amazing. It was such a good vibe, and so many amazing horror people there. I'd never been to a convention before, so that was really awesome too. And it was because almost every person in the movie or worked in the movie was from Cincinnati, so there was right there. So that's why everyone could come. We all hung out at a bar before and drank together and talked about the movie and everything. So that was our big screening. I want to have another screening in Cincinnati, hopefully, for everyone again. But yeah, that's a lot of people came out from the cast and the crew for that screening.
I'm from Ohio. I love Ohio.
I love Ohio. Loved our movie. We played at 2 film festivals in Ohio, and a lot of my film friends are in Ohio, so I like Ohio too.
So is revenge thriller, now that you have directed a revenge thriller, is that a subgenre that you'd like to play in some more, or would you want to now try a different sort of side of horror?
Well, I have many ideas. I have another side of revenge thrillers I want to play with. Not rape revenge, though. It's a different kind of angle, but I definitely have other areas in horror I want to play in too. Now that I've dipped my toes into directing and making movies, for sure.
That's awesome. So, you actually said this at the beginning, but I have heard you mention that you are a self-proclaimed found footage freak. So just for fun, we're going to play just a quick little game where we give you the names of 2 found footage horror films, and you just have to tell us which one you like better. No,
Okay.
no, it's not like trivia. It's so funny. We do this kind of game.
I was like, oh, okay.
Oh my God. The amount of times we do a game like this and the people, you look at their face and it like goes white because we're like, no, we're not doing trivia.
Trivia.
We're gonna like fuck you
was
over
like,
right away.
let's
No,
go.
this is pure. Which one do you like better? It's a this or that game. No explanation necessary. You ready?
All right, cool. Yes.
Okay. Oh God, this is the tough one. The toughest one. We're starting with it. The Blair Witch Project or Paranormal Activity?
Oh no.
I knew that. I was like, I'm very interested in this
All right,
answer.
You're gonna laugh. You're gonna laugh at this answer, and I do have actually a funny explanation about Paranormal Activity.
No, I'm not laughing. We love both.
Yeah.
Yeah, we love both. Okay, well, I said no explanation, but tell us.
I know. I literally just submitted my manuscript for my whole book about Paranormal Activity and why it is like the best horror movie and like how it took the Blair Witch and made it even bigger, so that I've literally spent like months in that headspace. So I'm like, Paranormal Activity.
Have you seen, so a friend of ours, Joe Bandelli, directed the Paranormal Activity documentary. It came out 2 years ago. Yeah. And so I was
literally was like a main source for one of my chapters.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So I like literally quote that documentary like nuts in one of my chapters because it's like he was a huge source for me. Yeah,
he's awesome.
It's a great documentary. It's a really good documentary. I got a lot of information from this documentary. It's very helpful.
Creep or Hell House LLC?
Hell House LLC.
Good choice.
Yeah. Do we love
those
the
are
first.
hard. They're hard ones.
Oh yeah, we're not gonna be like, okay, a really shitty one and like the best ever. Okay, VHS, the original from 2013, or Cloverfield.
Cloverfield.
Lake Mungo or Host?
I feel like we know the answer because this. When you said that was in your top 5, I'm like, oh, I get. Did you like Host though?
Yeah. Oh no, I really, really loved Host. A Host made me jump so hard I pulled a muscle in my neck. So yeah, I do. I just like Mungo is one of my all-time favorite movies of all time. So it's hard to beat it.
Of course. And the most important decision of all, but this is just for us because so one of the funny things on our podcast is Tim and I always argue over which one of these is a better movie because we're both big slasher people and we have our favorites. So we just want to know which one you like better, either the original Halloween from 1978 or the original Friday the 13th from 1980.
Oh God, Halloween.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Oh, you know what? That's the thing.
I'm so sorry. I am like I'm not a super vocal. I am not a big Friday the 13th person. I apologize. I understand its merit.
Tim, this interview's over. By the way, I'm sure you've already
publishing it.
I'm sure you've already had someone on who's come, but like that would be my Scarred for Life one because I saw it when I was 11, and between the score and just the suspense and like I was terrified in it. It was my source for loving. Okay, so anyway, hi, my name's Matt Emmer and I'm on Scarred for Life. Anyway, but we are now going to jump into that because even though the focus of this interview is Bystanders, we do want to cover all facets of your career in horror and including your podcast Scarred for Life. So how did you first get started doing this podcast, and can you tell our listeners a little bit more about it?
Yeah, so it's so funny. So I co-host this with Terry Menard. He has the website Gaily Dreadful, and we met on Twitter. I mean, like, we all know that Twitter is a cesspool, but Twitter has also brought me to some of the coolest people I know, and Terry being one of them. Like, we were mutuals, and he tweeted, I really want to do a podcast where we talk to people about the film that scared them as kids. And I had literally been planning one. Like, I wanted to really do that idea, but I didn't know anyone who to do it with. And I messaged him and said, I literally have a spreadsheet planning this idea. And he said, holy shit, we have to do it. And I said, all right, let's go. Fuck it. Like, let's start a podcast. And he's like my best friend now. He flew to my wedding. Like, we see each other once a year now. Like, he is just like my favorite person. And this podcast like is just like our baby. And it's really, we talk to a guest, usually a director or a journalist, a writer, someone connected to the horror space. And we interview them about the film that terrified them as a kid. So they'll pick usually a movie, sometimes a TV show. And we'll do like a brief interview with them about their creative work. But really the whole episode is like analyzing an old movie that terrified them. And we've watched the craziest shit for this podcast, like The Usual Suspects, obviously, but then like some weird stuff. Like I've just watched so many movies for this that I never would have watched, and I love it. It's like the coolest. It's so fun.
When you said The Usual Suspects, I thought you were actually referring to the movie.
Yeah, sorry, not the literal Usual Suspects.
Scarred me for life.
I know. Honestly, maybe somebody, but that has not been brought on. But pardon me. Yes.
Yeah. What do you enjoy most about doing projects like this?
The podcast specifically,
yes.
I love talking to people. Like, I love talking to people about what they love specifically. Like, especially other horror people, like, I've learned so much about filmmaking from this podcast. Like, not saying that, like, it was my film school, but, like, I really have learned a lot just about how hard it is to make a movie, like, the intensity of which it takes to make any horror project happen. And I just have gotten such an appreciation for artists in general. And it's just really cool to hear people's passion. And then also to hear what like scared people. It's just all of the stories we've heard from people are so silly. Some of them are so silly and some of them are like really traumatizing, but they're also open to talk about. And it's just been like really awesome to have these really intimate conversations with people for like an hour and learn about like their childhoods and stuff, and just have these really awesome conversations. Like, got to like talk to Brandon Cronenberg for like an hour about what scared him as a kid. You know, it's just like, oh, that's like a conversation. It feels like more than just a 15-minute interview. It feels like an actual nice conversation with a director or a writer, and it's just been like a really awesome experience to get to have those types of conversations with.
Yeah, no, well, I mean, we can relate. Like that's probably that's probably what I enjoy. Like we do on Happy Horror Time, we switch off between doing movie reviews and also talking with people. But like as much as I love reviewing movies with Tim because we have so much fun talking with people, these are people that like were in movies we grew up watching, and we're like, oh my God, we're talking with them and like hearing about their experiences. Like, what's better than that?
Isn't it the coolest thing ever? And you get to like chat with them like you're friends. It's just like there's nothing cooler.
I agree.
100%.
It's therapeutic sometimes too.
Yeah, but it's just like we're friends. It's like, it feels like you're friendly. Like you're not just like, I don't know. There's just something about it that is so cool, and you learn so much. And it's just like it's cool to me.
Yeah, and I noticed that you and your co-host Terry had been doing Scarred for Life since 2019, which is pretty amazing. Are there any particular episodes throughout the years that you're most proud of? Or any that stand out as like one of the
So one of the ones I really love we did with Maddie Doe, who directed The Long Walk. She's a Laotian filmmaker. She's incredible, and she brought with her. I just can't remember the exact title of the movie, but it's not like your typical horror movie. It's a movie. It was about. Oh my God! Why can't I remember what the movie was called? But it was about like. Oh, it's The Killing Fields. We watched The Killing Fields, which is. But
I think
she watched it really young,
Oscars, right? Did that win Oscars?
Yeah, because it's about like people. It's about like the last people left in Cambodia, and she watched it, and her dad like told her his life experience with that exact like time period, and we had this like beautiful conversation about survival and generational trauma, and it was like. We cried together. It was just like so beautiful and so sad, but it was just like one of the most beautiful conversations I've ever had with a person, and we got to record it, and that was just like beautiful. And
was it live or via Zoom?
Zoom.
Yeah. No, that's
all of
awesome.
Our stuff is via Zoom because Terry's in Nebraska. I'm here, but we just like I don't know. It's just. And then another one that was really good was Amy Simetz. We talked about like death and grief about She Dies Tomorrow, which is another one of my favorite movies. And it was a really good conversation too.
That's awesome. So we've had a great time talking with you. And before we wrap up, we just want to know, are there any new projects you are currently working on that you can tell us about?
Yeah. So keep an eye out for the Paranormal Activity book. that is hopefully coming out this year. Hopefully. I don't know. Books take a long time to happen, but my editor has the manuscript. It is all written, so hopefully that's the big one I could talk about right now. But I also keep an eye on Dread Central for a lot of cool stuff we're doing over there. So yeah.
Oh, we will.
What does the book explore? The making of the movie, or like, do you interview Katie and Mika?
It's basically it's like half production history and like found footage history. It's like I do found footage, like history and where Paranormal Activity fits, some production history, and then a lot of like analysis about like post 9/11 gender dynamics, domestic space, and like the housing crisis and how the film uses domestic space to make a terror. I also use a whole chapter to talk about the static camera, like the camera standing still, and how that shaped horror films like The Invisible Man. And then I also talk about how it rewrites the possession movie in the 21st century.
Wow. Yeah, we'll definitely check that out.
There's a lot going. There's a lot going on.
No, that sounds awesome. Yeah. So we have one final question for you, and we ask this to every single person we interview, and it will definitely put you on the spot, but I feel like we've put you on the spot a bunch throughout this, so you're ready for this. Okay.
I'm ready.
What is just one thing that you can tell us about your experience working on Bystanders that you have never told any other interviewer, publication, or podcaster to date? And I know you've been doing press for this.
At the gas station in Kentucky.
Yeah. Something, it doesn't have to be like some people think, if you want it to be juicy and gossipy, it can be. It does not have to be. It can be the tiniest detail, just something you have not told to any other interviewer or podcaster to date about your experience working on Bystanders.
She took home the spider.
I feel like
a funny picture of us, literally the funniest picture is us taping it up inside a Tupperware container and throwing it into the that's not the juicy thing. Oh. So I think this is something that was actually just like really meaningful to me on set that I hadn't talked about to anyone. So it's going to be like a not a long story, but there's like a build up to it. So we needed a weed whacker. We needed to clear a bunch of grass because we're rolling around, and we were like, and ticks, by the way, are a huge problem in the woods. So we were like trying to do everything possible to like avoid anyone getting ticks, hurt, whatever. We needed a weed whacker. We posted on the town Facebook group, hey, we need a weed whacker. Like literally, we got so much shit from posting in this Facebook group, like crossbows, catering. It was like truly the most, like, that was when you see community, that was fucking community. This guy was like, oh yeah, like I'm just chilling at home. I have a weed whacker. I'll come bring it by. And he comes by, and he is a injured veteran who is like, has a daughter, and he's like, can I bring her around to see on set? And I go, this is a horror movie. I like, don't know, whatever. He ends up bringing her, and it was like really awesome. We like showed her on set, and like the day we were leaving, he came by to get the weed whacker, and he brought her with him, and she brought me like a fucking bracelet and said, you made me realize I could make movies. She brought me a fucking French. She was like an 8-year-old kid, and I was like, this is all I ever need. Like, this is what I want. Like, and she was like, I want to make movies now because I now can see that women, like girls, can make movies. And I like started fucking bawling my eyes out because I was like, all I want to do is inspire people to do this stuff. And I was just like the biggest compliment. I don't know. It was just,
oh my God. I feel a little choked up hearing that. That is so sweet.
I know. So that was...
We're going to change our title from Happy Horror Time to Sappy Horror Time.
It just like, that just meant the world. Like that, everything, like, I don't know, just having her be able to see me like behind a monitor directing people, and her realizing like I can do that and I want to do that. Yeah.
What a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing that with us. I mean, it's sort of a crapshoot.
The hot exclusive on that story.
It's when we ask this question, it's sort of a crapshoot. Sometimes we will get like the greatest stories like yours, and sometimes not so much. I'll just leave it at that.
Imagine they're
them
like, we ate a lot of like this food, and you're like, okay, great, thanks a lot.
We've gotten one. Didn't we get someone who got food poisoning? And they're like, okay. Cool. Oh my God. Well, Mary Beth, we've had such a blast talking with you. This is great. Like you were saying, I mean, like what you enjoy about podcasting is what we enjoy, just like having a conversation with other people who love horror and make horror. And like, we're so proud of, you making your directorial debut. We wish you nothing but the best. This has been really fun. Okay,
awesome. Thank you,
and just so you know, the movie that did not scar me for life was not Halloween or Friday 13th. It was Psycho 2.
We just talked about that on the podcast. It's such a good movie, though.
Yeah.
That's so funny. Oh, well, look, enjoy the rest of your day and we'll be in touch.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much. This was awesome. Thank you.
Okay, well, take care. Okay, bye.
You too. Bye.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Happy Horror Time.
If you'd like to support the podcast, please sign up to be a patron at www.patreon.com/happyhorrortime. As a patron, you get access to all our bonus content, which now includes 2 new bonus episodes every month, a monthly after-show mini episode, access to our Discord community so you can chat with us directly, and the chance to review a film with us in one of our bonus episodes.
Patrons also get all our regular episodes ad-free and a day early, our monthly newsletter, the chance to vote in polls, and autographed Happy Horror Time stickers.
I'm Matt Emmert.
And I'm Tim Murdoch.
And we hope you have a happy horror time.